Hi, I'm Kevin Lee with the E-Marketing Association. My day job is running Did It. My passion is running Giving Forward, a nonprofit that's in the content and events business. I've got Joseph Franklin McElroy with me. Joseph's been involved in SEO almost as long as I have been, perhaps even longer. We never really compared our start dates, but we've been doing SEO for a long time. So I wanted to get into some of the sort of content-centric SEO that Joseph is finding is working really well these days. SEO's evolved a lot in the last 20 years, and so content has always been king. But I think Joseph is the king of content. So uh, I would love to hear sort of what you think is working these days more than ever. Like what should content creators and SEO professionals be thinking about when they're trying to allocate their fixed SEO and content budget?
Well, when you're building, when you're looking at your website, people look at essentially their navigational hub, right? And they build content in this sort of hierarchical fashion, right? And that's great. That's driving people down towards the money pages, the pages that where you buy stuff, and that's pretty important for a business. But a lot of times it's hard to rank those money pages because people don't want to link to your widget. Publishers don't find it interesting. Competitors don't. You don't want to link to competitive products, so it's hard to build value for those money pages, right? So how do you build authority to those pages? And that is creating authority for other pages on your site and then having that be transferred to your money pages, right? So what kind of other content do you build? And so a lot of people do a blog, right? And they just write lots of blog posts and get links to those blog posts and hope that that works. And it can work if somebody gets a popular blog, but a lot of time that doesn't work particularly well either because no particular blog post gets ranked for anything, right? So what I like to do is to organize something that's the opposite, opposite essentially of a navigation hub is a content hub, which organizes in a way where instead of everything pointing down, all the pages pointing down in the hierarchy, every page points either laterally or up, right? And so they point to so people can get to, so that search engines can get to everything. It has to go laterally, and then up to the important pages, which are the topical centers. So you call that a content hub. And then as I was talking to you before, you conceptualize that more than just what's on your site and the blog. It's also, you conceptualize what exists all over the internet that can be part of your topical content hub, and how can it all point back to you, either with explicit links or mentions or various signals, to get all those signals pointing back to your topical hub. And then you can strategize and build fairly predictably. You can build a content calendar that incorporates not only what you're going to do, but what creators will do, what you're going to try to get earned, what you're going to try to place with branded media, whatever, right? To support your hub, and then go about doing. And another thing that a lot of people don't realize is that there's still, one of the top three, according to Google itself, still ranking factors is links. All right. I think it was last year, what was his name? Eric, was asked, and he said content, links, and then the ranking, ranking the smart brain or whatever, the rank brain, right? So links are still important, but it's not a great idea to go out and buy a bunch of links anymore or do anything like that. So editorial link building is still very important. It's like a PR campaign. So it's digital PR. It's, some of the traditional things like a skyscraper, approach. And, it's figuring out how to create great content that you either can convince people to place for you, or you place it and then get people to pay attention to it, right? And that is about creating really interesting content. And not only that, there's a lot of programs out there to do link building that have all these canned emails and they send and they do things like that. that works somewhat, but it can be much more effective if you really get great writers writing thoughtful, interesting approaches to people, right? So great content gets attention for great content. All of this then can be, there's can be analyzed. I mean, you don't want to spend too much money on a lot of these things, but you can incorporate research, you can incorporate analysis, data, into making all this content work better. But it starts first with great writers who can tell a great story.
I agree on that one. Not every brand has sort of bought into this concept of brand as a publisher or brand as a content creator. Have there been any catalysts that you think have been really effective for like an internal marketing team to be able to go to senior management and say, hey, we really need to invest more heavily in this. We're getting our lunch eaten because we're not doing what we need to be doing, right? So obviously freeing up the budget, content creation, it's not always cheap. If you do it sort of in a scrappy way, it can be relatively inexpensive, but still the budgets never seem to be there to do everything that we would like to do as content and SEO professionals. So what's been sort of that secret bullet message that has allowed the internal marketing team to go up to finance and say, hey, we're under investing, can we have some more money?
So a couple of things jump to my mind. One is, you can play on ego. You can create a branded content hub, all right? Tell them that you're going to create a magazine. So this works really well in the B2B. You're going to create a magazine for relatively little money that is going to be a leader in the industry. And when people talk about the industry, then and they need to, to get to journalistic quality, relatively agnostic content, they'll come to that branded magazine. And you can do that on your own site or somewhere else. My guest next week on my own podcast is Keith Reynolds. He actually did one called Chief Packaging Officer for Kodak. All right, and when he worked with us. That was, they loved that concept and it worked really well. We more recently did one for an AP automation company, right? You wouldn't believe they would want to get into the publishing game, but they created something called Untapped, which with the AP in capital letters, and that became an industry leader, in terms of content. It really drove, a lot of sales for them, a lot of traffic. Now it's hot. It's, because of the nature of journalistic quality content, it's got to be top of the funnel for the most part, maybe a little bit in the middle funnel, but then you can introduce relationships and ways to get those conversions to happen, but you build big brand awareness. The other thing is awareness. All right. Suppose you're launching a new patent and you're wanting to have a company that's in the big construction doing some really big but obscure technology for foundations, right? And they've created a patent that just makes it a lot safer for companies to do that, for people not getting killed, all right? So doing content a hub around that whole concept of safety, then using all these patents to get publishers to pay attention to you, right? And to write about it and then point to the source. All of a sudden you create two things. One, awareness of your patent, but you're also now built a reputation for safety, which is really good for attracting really great talent. Now you look safe and you're innovative. So, you got to find the other things besides just traffic and leads, because they don't necessarily believe that, most of these companies, a lot of them believe that they know the 5,000 people that are going to buy their product, right? And they don't need to attract them. They just need to figure out ways to call them. And they need a nice brochure website to show them, and, convincing them that that's otherwise is sometimes difficult. So you come in with trying to figure out where they need to build awareness and which makes sense to them, right? And so then you build awareness, and then that has cascading effects. It all makes it more attractive to get the engineers easily that's going to work with them. When they get better engineers, then they're able to get more projects. and then they get a reputation, people start looking for them, and then you can concentrate on the particular engineering expertise. You can concentrate on them, well, here's the particular kind of services you provide. Well, let's build awareness. They start believing it, all right? And once they start believing it, then they do more of it.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's a very wise idea to think about, your content not just at the bottom of the funnel, right? You
Yeah.
want to be touching that consumer or influencer or decision maker through the entire process. Sometimes we found that with certain clients, they get essentially the SEO equivalent of writer's block, right? And they can't think of new things to talk about or new content ideas. And one of the things that we've found is talk to the frontline people, right? Talk to the CSRs, the customer service representatives, and make sure that you're answering all the questions that your consumers have. I mean, Alan Blaywice, who's been in the industry as long as we have, that's one of his favorite areas is like, make sure you answer all the questions, right? Because you have the ability to essentially not only create great SEO content, but you take the load off of your CSRs because you actually put the answer on the website, which at 4 o'clock in the morning, the person just wants the answer. They don't need to talk to a human.
Yes.
So other than sort of, what are some other hidden places within organizations where if you're sort of starting to wonder about content ideas that you can sort of go and have essentially an internal survey of the organization to sort of uncover these little nuggets of content or content ideas that might not have already been on your editorial calendar?
What I will often do, I started this in travel, I've been in travel, and I started doing research on something called memorable tourism experiences, right? Which identified 7 emotional factors like hedonism, interaction with local culture, refreshment, a number of things that makes a travel experience memorable. And then I found out anticipation makes it even more a stronger, memorable experience. And then when the people have a memorable experience, that's the biggest, strongest indicator of revisit intention and brand loyalty. So, and then I was able to see that this sort of emotional experience, is available in almost any industry. There's some sort of emotional experience. So if you can think about the possible emotional experiences that your brand is giving at the customer level, and your people are also experiencing with them, and then talk to them about those emotions and what makes the experience of working with you really rewarding for people, then that can give you lots of ideas for content. Like, suppose that you're in an industry that's not particularly well known or has a lot of providers that have a little bit of a bad reputation. Say, for example, SEO, right? The emotion of finding somebody that actually delivers what they say and understandable, that emotion of relief that it's all taken care of for you, right? That's an emotion. They feel that sort of. So if you can communicate that in different ways in content, right? People will read that and that'll build the anticipation. That's the experience they're going to have with you, right? Then, they're likely to take an action to at least talk to you, right? So I would say to find, when you reach that roadblock, delve into the emotions, go into the emotions of your business to find new avenues of content.
That's great. Thanks, Joseph. When I think about consumer travel, in particular luxury travel, I think about almost a classic funnel in a sense that, the last stages of the booking process, you really have it down to just a small handful of choices, right? Where you're really trying to decide between maybe you already picked the city or the country, and now you're trying to decide between 2 or 3 locations or 2 or 3 choices, right? And it, obviously there's only one winner, right? Only one person gets the booking. And I'd love to get your thoughts about sort of how content tilts that in the direction of the brand that did the great content, right? Because you can be the second place winner, but you don't get the booking, right? Somebody else got the booking, right? And in luxury travel in particular, you don't even necessarily know who else is in the mix, right? You may know, okay, well, here are the other resorts within a 10-mile radius of us, or here are the other ones who are also 4-star resorts, or we have a meal plan, they don't have a meal plan. We have free breakfast, they don't have free breakfast. You know, we have a spa, they don't have a spa, right? But in the end, the consumer, right, especially at the high end, right, they're going to have these few brands that they're thinking about, or these few specific locations of a resort, and you got to break the tie, right? Just so that like in SEO, there's a tie between two pieces of content being almost identical.
Mm-hmm.
In the travel shopper's eyes, there's two experiences which, down to that last second, they're almost identical, but you got to win. There's one marketer that wins in that. So how do you use content to be the winner?
Well, what you're saying it's the experience, it's the anticipated experience that they're going to have, right? How incredibly important smell is for hotel booking. I mean, people walk into a place and they will turn around if the smell is not right for them, right? Now, how do you do that with content? Right? You might talk about the fresh pine smell. You might identify situations where you talk about, the odor and the aroma. You've got to identify what are the emotional triggers that are most prevalent for your brand. Are you a discount brand or your luxury brand, right? Well, who are your luxury brand for? Business travelers or vacation travelers? Production companies. Are they looking for a long time or the short time? What is it there? What are the experience they want to have, and in that experience, what are the kind of emotions you need to satisfy? Or physical comforts, and so it's the content has to speak to that essentially at all levels of the process, in some way, right? So that when it comes down to, okay, the pricing or whatever it is that they're comparing, they'll still have that memory of you bringing the experience along with you, right, through their journey to find out who they're compared to, and I think that can make a big difference. Then the experience, of course, booking. You have the wrong type of booking page, that could drive everything crazy. Yeah. So
Right.
the technology. So the content, is got to be a story, like you talked about before, and the story has got to hit emotional buttons, experiential buttons, um, uh, and just sort of try to convey as best you can the experience they might have when they stay at your place.
That's great. Well, everyone's optimistic that at some point we'll get through this pandemic, and so I
Yeah.
get the sense that there's a ton of sort of pent up demand at the consumer level for travel, right? Because they've been stuck at home forever. So certainly domestically, it seems like there might be a bit of an explosion in the staycation market,
Oh,
and that means that a lot of the content that had perhaps been created previous years, right, might not necessarily fit the staycation buying cycle. So, do you recommend that folks should be investing heavily in content creation in the travel industry right now when it's most painful, right? Because they have no revenue to
yeah.
speak of. But if they don't start to create the staycation revenue, the staycation content now, in 6, 9 months, when all of a sudden people are like ready to get out there, right? They might have the wrong type of content. So, how should they be thinking about, like, sometimes it takes months to get something to rank, right? So it seems like now would be the time that if they
Oh,
have the cash, they should be doing staycation content.
oh, without a doubt. I mean, local travel is actually in some areas has not been hit bad at all. In fact, I have a motel resort in the mountains of North Carolina called the meadowlarkmotel.com. Appalachian chic. But the county that we're in, I talked to the tourism board just the other day. The county, it's like the highest elevation west of the Rockies. Our county had higher tourism than ever before, 16% increase, because people wanted to get away from the cities. They had a lot of roadside motels, which are walk up to the door, go in. So we had the best year we've had, except for the 2 months that we had to be closed. But once we opened, we had the best year that we had in every month, even in the cold months. We were full in the month of December, all right, which is freezing. We're doing well in January. And a couple reasons for that is one is we were the first ones out with content about staying safe with COVID. All right, in the motel, and the chamber picked it up, the local TDA picked it up, the newspaper picked it up, and put it out everywhere. All right, sent it out. Other hotels and motels in the area linked to it. All right, and boom, all of a sudden we got a reputation for being very safe. Right.
Right.
So that really, so doing, content right now about being safe will probably get you, your bookings fairly quickly. Then, and then, the first thing that's going to come back is going to be local travel, staycations. People are going to not feel safe traveling by air. They're going to drive 100, 150 miles, and they're going to go to, things they've never gone before. The United States is going to be explored over the next 2-3 years like it's never been explored since the 60s and 70s, probably. Road culture is going to be back. I know half the people I know in New York City that never had a car now have a car, right? And, international travel is going to take a little longer to come back. So, given the time it takes for content to rank, right, you should be starting now, right now. This should be the time when you're starting, because your competitors are going to start thinking about this. And you and a competitor are both listening to this podcast right now. One of you is going to start the race first and
Right.
going to win. All right. And also, this is the best time to get content written because you can get the best price for quantity. All right. So if you have saved your pennies and you have some cash to invest, you're going to get more for what you're going to do right now than what you will do later. So it has multiple reasons. One is you got to get ahead of the game. Two, there's your money's going to go farther to get ready for this. So yeah, I highly recommend it right now.
Yeah, I think I heard from somebody in the RV industry that they've got like a 1 year backlog on RVs in the
Yeah,
manufacturing. They're running triple shifts to
yeah.
build RVs because people don't want to fly. And so it's going to change the travel culture. And that may be a semi-permanent shift. I mean, people may decide,
I
just
like
the
it. Yeah.
hassle of, the hassle of taking your shoes off and going through the TSA, maybe you don't want to do that either. So
And there's
it'll be
going to
interesting
be
to
a
see.
big, in a year or two, there's going to be a big used RV market too, and people are going to be taking advantage of that. So you're right; it's a seismic shift for that. I would say at least 2 to 3 years. Local travel is going to be hit, and it might be longer than that, right? So I'm totally bull on investing into your local travel opportunities, and then really putting the marketing to it, because it's going to become it'll be a lot more roadside traffic, and a lot of people will be searching on their phone, right? They're going to be searching their phone as they're doing their road trips. Making the people like to do spur of the moment stuff. They like to change their plans. They might have a flat tire and they need something else. You need to be totally in the content and the local search results and the mobile search results ready to go, because that's going to happen.
And that may bring the restaurants back too. I mean, if people are doing a lot of staycations,
Yeah.
that's going to be great for the restaurants. I think perhaps the local tourism bureaus should really think more holistically about not just having the local motels and hotels as constituents, but everything that supports the travel industry and the traveler,
And
right? So
the digital nomads, the people, the digital workforce. Everybody knows how to work from remotely now.
yeah,
So they're going to go not just on vacation. So I'm going to go work in in the mountains for a month, or I'm going to work at the beach for a month. I'm going to go in the month before the big explosion of tourism. I'm going the month after. It's going to extend the seasons for the locals. And they got to be prepared with it.
absolutely, absolutely. Great. Well, if people need to reach you because you've inspired them to invest in content, what's the best way for them to reach you?
Well, they can send me an email at joseph@galileotechmedia.com, or go to my website, galileotechmedia.com, to sign up for our newsletter. You can always hear me Friday from 1 to 2 on my podcast at Wise Content Creates Wealth. It's streamed on Zoom on my Facebook page for that, which is facebook.com/Wise Content Creates Wealth. Multiple ways.
Great. Thanks so much for joining me on the E-Marketing Association blog, and we'll stay in touch.
Sounds good. Thank you so much.